morning, everybody that's joining me. We're doing part 3 of our tutorial for the French market tote, the pink bag that you see hanging in the back there. If you want to follow along and you missed the first 2, that is my YouTube channel, NiftyKnotz, one word, and the playlist is NiftyKnotz Talk. Hit that subscribe button, you'll know when the new tutorial for today is uploaded. I then have to wait for TikTok to process that live, and then after they process that live, I upload it to YouTube. So sometimes it takes a few hours depending on how long I sit and chatter. For those of you that know me already, you know I have to take care of the aggressively panting dog and give him his treats. Because as soon as I put on my phone, he comes out. Like Pavlov's dog, he knows he's going to get a treat. Only because I know that's going to stop him from harassing me while I'm trying to teach. And for those of you that are new, I do tutorials Monday through Friday around 9:45, around this time right now. And 9:45 a.m. Monday through Friday, that's Eastern United States time. Easy. We've done dolls and we've done plushies. I've done granny squares with motifs. I've done a granny square tote bag. Last week I did a bolero shrug, and all of those are already on my channel. And today I'm going to try to get around this handle of this bag a couple times. I am just a little bit early, and that's because I have to run out the door at 11 or so. So I'm going to try to get done as much as I can. Again, this is my YouTube channel. This is the playlist. This is the bag that we're working on today. And this is how far we have so far. How much we have so far. We have up through this part of the handle done. And now we have to work along the sides and up along the handle. So that's going to be today's tutorial. And good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see everybody that made it. I have to take a minute here and look at the one that I made because it's been a while since I made them, and most of the projects I do are freehanded. So I just want to take a look. Good morning. Let's see here. Take a look at exactly how I did this one. And then I can jump right in and show you. Okay, let me just write my notes here so I know what I'm doing. Again, most of these projects that I do are projects that I have free-handed, so you're working right along with me as I do these projects. This is a bag that I've free-handed before. I haven't made it in a while, so I'm just kind of refreshing my memory by looking at the old bag and counting the stitches, which is another good way that you can try to figure out what you're doing with some patterns sometimes. So, okay. And I think I'm going to do this one a little bit differently than I did the other one. All right, so let's get started. Again, that's what we're working on today, the French market tote. If you want to join my YouTube channel, It might not be free to subscribe on TikTok, but it's free to subscribe there. And let's get started. All right, so for the majority of the bag, I used a hook that was 5 millimeters. For the rest of the bag, this is the bolero that we did, which is basically just a scarf with sleeves on it. And I showed you how to do the sleeves quite a few different ways. One of them flared like this, and then a couple of cuffs, or just a straight sleeve. And it's just worn just over your shoulders, and then the sleeves. I added little beads to mine. All those tutorials are uploaded. Good morning, Cindy. All those tutorials are uploaded already. The principle behind my tutorials is if you can hold your yarn, hold your hook, and do a simple stitch, you can do pretty things with those simple stitches, because everything's based upon holding your yarn and holding your hook and being able to yarn over and pull through that loop. If you can do that, you can do things like that. And keeping in the flow of showing you how you can make different things out of different stitches, this right here is the same stitch that we use to make this bag right here. So just a different yarn, same stitches, and that's what we're going to do. So we are going to make sure we're working on our right side. So our right side will be the side where you can see the stitches. So that's our right side. So you want that side facing you. So you're going to hold it so that you see the mesh corner there. So that's where we started. This is where we cinched it together yesterday. And this is the side of the mesh corner. And we're going to take this corner right here, and this is where we're going to start in. And we are going to put some stitch markers this time. And I am going to use a 4.5 millimeter hook this time, just because I want the handles to be a little bit tighter so the handles don't stretch, because the bag and the handles aren't lined for this particular bag, because the bag itself is meant to stretch to accommodate whatever you want to put in it, and it can hold a lot of things, but you don't really want the handles to stretch all that much. So I'm going to use just a little bit of a smaller hook, and I'm still using worsted weight acrylic, and I seem to have misplaced my label. It is, oh, I have another skein back here. The colorway that I'm using, and this is one of my favorite yarns to do with this project, because it's a little bit stiffer and a little less stretchy than the regular Red Heart and some of the other acrylics that you find. So this is Super Saver Ombre, and I like the way the ombre kind of gives like that shadowy look. So this is like one of my go-tos, and I'm pretty sure I have enough yarn in this skein to do one bag the way I've done it. And this colorway is Anemone. For those of you that can see it, this colorway is Anemone. To be honest with you, I don't remember what this colorway was, but it was still the Super Saver Ombre yarn. So we're going to take the end of our yarn. Just tie your slip knot, because you're going to join with a single crochet. And again, you want the right side facing yourself so that you're working on the right side. Because you're going to start, this is just going to be all the way around the bag now. So you're going to start, whereas down the one side. So with the right side facing you, and this is where we cinched up our stitches, we're going to join right here in this chain 3 space, or that space, depending on how you did your bag. And we're just going to join it with a single crochet. To join with a single crochet, you would just hold your stitch. You would just put your yarn on your hook, and you would yarn over and go through once and pull it under that space, and you have now 2 loops on your hook, and you yarn over and pull it through twice, and that gives you a single crochet join. So it's just like doing the single crochet. And I am going to put stitch markers in these so I can mark where I'm at, and I'll show you kind of why I do that as we go along. So, same as we did for the first row, we're going to do a base row. And the base row is going to be 3 single crochets in each space and 1 single crochet in each stitch or side of stitch. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and then 1 over top of that stitch, 4. So we're just going to work all the way down that mesh like that. I get rid of the huffing dog and I have the yowling cat. So 3, and I am going to work right over top of my tail. Let me put this down a little bit. I should probably turn the light on for myself. Thank you for all the likes. Are you the only one here so far, Cindy? That's easy enough to explain it again while I sit here and do my base row, because this base row is going to literally go all the way around the bag. And again, if you're only pulling up one loop over that treble crochet, that's okay. It's not going to stretch it out because they're anchored by the stitch before it and then the stitch you're going to put in the space after it. So if it looks like you're stretching it out, by the time you put those stitches before and after it, it's going to anchor it down. So it's not going to make, it's not really going to matter. And it may seem like you're using too little stitches. Like that 3 stitches just doesn't seem like it's enough. Just slide them over because we're going to make it enough. Because I don't want any more stitches than that in my spaces. I want the same amount of stitches that I did on the base row for the first one. So again, I am starting with the right side facing me. No, there's one other. Oh, that's okay. I know those of you that love me. Looking through my comments here. That's okay. Like I said, I'm a little bit early. And I think people are realizing they can go back and watch my YouTube. So they don't have to be up quite as early. So I'm just going to continue around this first side. And I'm going to do 3 stitches in each space. 1 stitch over top of my stitch. 3 stitches in each space. 1 stitch over top of my stitch. 3 stitches in each space. I'm working single crochets and 1 stitch in that stitch. They are standard US terms. So 1, 2, 3. You're working on a shrug. Oh, cool. It makes me happy to see people working on my projects. My goofy dog just walked out and just ran into the wall. Just walked straight into the wall. You're not getting any more treats. So, again, I'm just with the right side facing me. I just picked up the stitches on the side where we left off from our other corner. This is the corner 1, and I'm just going to work 3 stitches in each space, 1 stitch in each I know, like really? 1, 2, 3. Anyone's out again. He's an old man. I think he's having prostate issues. Because he needs to go out every 10 minutes. Which I guess is better better than the alternative, which would be him not letting me know he needs to go out. Then we might have problems. Then, as I say to him all the time, do we need to fight? And he just looks at me. So I'm just going to keep going around here. What colors are you making your shrug? What kind of yarn? He cannot give me any peace. He has to go out there and start barking and wake everybody else in the house up. Thank you for all the lives, the likes. I think my brain's somewhere still in La La Land today. It usually is at this time. Thank you for all the likes. I really appreciate it. Again, we just started on one side and we started in the corner square. X gone with the same yarn and have left over. Okay. So again, we just started in the corner square where we cinched it up for the top and the bottom, or for the tops, and I'm just working across that side, doing 3 single crochet in each space and 1 single crochet in the side of each stitch. And I am using a little bit smaller of a hook, just so when I get to the handles I can make sure they're a little bit tight. Do I have a pattern for this? I do not really have a pattern for this. However, you can go to my YouTube channel there, and if you go to NiftyKnotz Talk, I've uploaded all these lives that I've done, so you can kind of skip through them. So if you just want to know the starting chain, you can skip through it and find the starting chain. If you want to know what to do after that, you can skip through it and find out what you want to do after that. Because I do go through the whole project. I do take the week to go through the entire project. So you could skip through my videos and you could get the entire pattern project from it. But I do not have a written pattern for it. A lot of what I do is just freehanded. And part of just kind of what fell into place as tutorials started as me showing you how you can take the simple principles just down to the very, very basic for the shrug. But I'd buy the pattern if you had it. No, I'm sorry, I don't. I don't have a pattern for the shrug either. I just kind of like picked it up and started to do it. But I do appreciate that. I will keep you in mind. If I post patterns, I will certainly let you guys know. But the idea behind the tutorials was that if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook and you can yarn over, you can pretty much do these basic stitches and just use your imagination and just put things together. And that's kind of what I do throughout the tutorial. That's why I say if you want to skip through just to get the pieces that you need, I'll post a video of the shrug when I'm done with it, making it for my mom. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But I kind of take you through my thought process of how I think about where I'm going to put my stitches, how I think about what kind of stitches I'm going to use, so that if you wanted to just kind of freehand something on your own, you can go through my thought process there and kind of see how I come to the conclusions that I've come to and how I've managed to make the piece that I've made. You, Sir Charles, are not going to interrupt my piece. We're finding spots. Sorry about that, guys. You don't get studio quality with me. You get everyday life. which unfortunately is the aggressively panting dog. Thank you for whoever summed that up in those words, because that truly just is exactly what it is. Exactly what he is. The aggressively panting dog. So I'm almost down one side. And I'm still working three in each space, one in the top. And like I said before, if it looks like you're pulling because there's only one loop on that side to put your single crochet in, and you think that space is too big over that stitch, you've anchored it on one side when you did the last stitch in that chain 3, and you're going to anchor it again when you do the first stitch in the next one. So that is really going to kind of disappear, and it's going to anchor that stitch down, so it's not going to pull that strand of that thread up, that strand of that yarn up, and make it look like there's a big hole there above that stitch. When you do that through that stitch, this stitch anchors it from this side. That first stitch in the next space anchors it from that side, and that hole just kind of disappears, and it pulls it tight, so you don't have to worry about that, because that's just going to be the nature of the stitches. Because when you turn for your, when you do your turning chains, like even when you do your top and your bottom are going to be like straight stitches, because that's where you did your starting chain and that's where you ended your stitches. But the sides panels will always be every other row. You're going to have a chain 4 where you turned, and then you're going to have a stitch where you ended. So then the next one, you're going to have the chain 4 where you turned, and then the next side you're going to have the stitch where you ended. So working up the sides, as long as you put that stitch somewhere in the top of, as long as you put that single crochet somewhere in the top of the stitch here, you'll be good. And the same with, we're getting to the end here, so I'm going to do my last stitch in my last side of my treble there from the mesh, and you can see this is where we started our side here, and then I'm going to do 3 stitches in this last one. Don't know what he wants. Alright, now since I did the 3 stitches in the last one, just so I can keep track of where I'm at, go lay down. Go. Go lay down. That's what I have to say. Do we need to fight? Go lay down. Maybe if I ignore him. Okay, so then I know that I did, because I kept my notes here, I did 8 rows. So I did 1, I know they look kind of mashed up because they're all decreases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, that looks like 10 rows. Oh, we did say we were going to do 10 rows even. So we have 10 rows even. 2, 3. So I'm going to work 10 single crochets in the sides of these stitches and up there. So in the sides of these stitches, so I did my last 3 stitches in my square, in my last square, my last block, and now I'm going to take and do 10 stitches down the side of these 10 rows that I did. Down the side of those 10 rows that I did to get to the top part of that. So again, the 3 stitches in this side of the square, and then I'm going to do 10 stitches across this piece here, 10 stitches evenly. So I'm marking this just so that I know, so I can count, so I make sure I'm getting my pieces even. So you can, like, that little piece that's there, you can skip that if you want, or you can work into that, however you want to work it to get your 10 stitches. Like literally, however you want to work it to get your 10 stitches. So 2, and you just kind of see I'm putting them anywhere in the side. 3, just anywhere in the side of the stitch. that didn't do very well. Like literally anywhere in the side of the stitch to work your way up to make sure you have 10. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9 seemed to be the number there when I worked them up there. So if you can only fit 9, you can only fit 9. But I am actually going to make one extra stitch, and I'm going to make that one extra stitch to give me 10. I am going to slip stitch to the first stitch on this part that we did. So you can see that I worked my 3 in my loop. I marked my third one. You can see that I worked 9 stitches up the top here, and then I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to like ignore the end of the stitch there, and I'm going to slip stitch right into that first stitch from the top across here. And that's going to help anchor your handle. So I'm just going to slip stitch right in that. And I'm going to mark that slip stitch too. I mean, you don't have to do all the marking that I do. I just do all the marking because then I can go back and make sure that I have an even number on the same side. But again, you're working with all single crochets, so and slip stitches and chains around this part. So if like you miss a stitch on one side or the other, you're really not going to notice that missed stitch on one side or the other. So now that now that we've worked all the way up the one side, and I've got to the very top, I am paying attention. I do appreciate the feedback, but I do have to count. I'm going to do 75 stitches. Do I want to do 75 stitches? Let me see. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm just chaining. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Don't make them too tight. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And you want them to be as tight as your hook tension. You don't want them to be super pulled tight because you are going to work into them. But I have a 30. 32, 33, 34, 35. 40. 50. 50 is definitely not long enough. 51, 52, 53, 60. Okay, so I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say that like that 75 is probably big enough for me to get my arm through if I wanted to hold that bag. And you don't want it to sag too much because the bag itself will stretch down. So you kind of want the handles to stay where they are. If you want to put a few more stitches or a few less stitches, you can do that as well. But I'm going to stick with my 75 there because that 75 will stretch a little bit. I mean, you see, not much, but it'll stretch just a little bit. I might even go with 70 stitches there. But that is something that is totally your preference, how big you want these handles to be. I'm counting again because I know I pulled a couple out. You know what, I think I am going to do 75 because I'm going to sell this one. So I'll do 75 stitches, and that's more than long enough for the majority of anybody to get their arm in there. So I have 75 stitches. So you want to kind of pull your chain up because you want to make sure that it's straight and you don't want it twisted. And once you make sure it's straight and it's not twisted, just like you started with a slip stitch on this side, you're going to put a slip stitch in the last stitch on this side to connect it. So I'm going to make sure I didn't twist my chain here because I've done that already. I mean, you can always fudge it if you do twist your chain, but it can, sometimes it ends up looking twisted. So I just slip stitched to that first coming across here. I slip stitched to that last stitch there. So then you see we have the tail where we had tied it off. You see the tail that we had tied it off. I'll turn it around this way, it'll be easier. And I slip stitched in that last stitch there, and there's my, for my handles. So slip stitch in that side, work your 75 chains, slip stitch in the last stitch there, and then I'm going to put another marker in that slip stitch that I just did. Maybe, if it will cooperate. And then I'm going to work right over this tail because I don't like weaving in my ends. So we did 9 stitches. We did 9 stitches from here to the first loop. So we're going to make sure we do another 9 stitches down here to the first loop. So this is what you're working down. This is where you are. So you're going to do 9 stitches down here, and that takes you to the first loop. And again, I'm just putting them wherever my hook will fit easily. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And if you find it's more comfortable to do 10 stitches up there, you can do 10 stitches up there. Again, as long as you just keep track of them and you do them evenly on each side. And now I worked over that tail, so I'm just going to cut it off and get it out of my way. One end we don't have to weave in. And now I'm going to continue down the other side of the mesh doing the same thing. I'm going to do 3 stitches in the chain, in the space, and I'm going to do 1 stitch over the stitch. 3 stitches, 1 stitch. 3 stitches in the space, 1 stitch in the next one. And I'm just going to work my way down the other side of the bag like that. If you alter how many stitches you put on your handles, or if you put on your sides, you can always just like jot down the numbers. Like I'll jot down the numbers sometimes so I just remember how many I have. And again, I've gone up one side, I did my chain for the handles, and I'm going down the other side. Oh, I didn't mark my first stitch here. Let me see. So this was my slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this was my first stitch. Again, I'm pretty much just doing this for myself so that I can keep track of where my stitches are. So I have a stitch marker in my slip stitch, and I have a stitch marker in the first stitch that I started working across the chain 3 loops. There. Am I missing comments? Am I like... I hope I'm not missing your comments. Good morning, everybody that's joining me. Doesn't look like I missed any. Yes. Nope. Okay. Sounds good to me. Because I'll tend to get like engrossed in what I'm doing here. So again, just all the way down the side, 3 and then 1, 3 in the space, 1 over the stitch, or the side of the stitch, the chain, or whichever, I mean, just as long as it's in there somewhere. If you do that video that's shrug, if you're still here, if you do that video that's shrug, do me a favor and send it to my, send it to me as a direct message as well, because I don't always, like, everybody's stuff doesn't pop up in the time that they, for is explaining really well. Thank you. Your videos don't always pop up in the time that you've posted them. So sometimes, like, I'll see a video and I'll go back and realize that, like, it was that I'll just see today that it was, like, posted days ago. Or, like, the week before or something. So I just want to see it. That's all. Or tag me. You can tag me in it, and that it'll notify me that I can watch that video. Or duet me. The video I posted yesterday was the shrug with the beads on the end of it. That was the video that I posted yesterday. It's fun sometimes to duet people. Thank you very much. She will do that for me. Thank you very much. Alright. We getting there? I know it seems like a lot of stitches. That's why I tell people, it's a really big bag. You don't realize how big the bag is because it's all cinched up on the sides. Almost there. couple more. Almost. All right, so again, I'm going to do my 3 stitches in the last space, and I'm going to mark the last stitch. Again, you don't have to mark that last stitch. I just mark them because I want to make sure I'm getting my counts right, because I'm not always paying attention. And then I'm going to work the 9 stitches across the sides here, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch on the top, just like I did on the other side. And again, anywhere you can fit your hook to get those 9 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's the side of my stitch, my 9th stitch there, and you can see this is kind of the starting, but there's the first stitch from the top. I'm going to work on the handle part right now. So I'm going to 9 across there, and I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch there, and just like I did with the rest, I'll explain what I did. I'm going to slip stitch into the top, into that first stitch on the very top. Okay, so basically what we did was we did the same way we did a base row for this part of the bag. We did base rows on the sides for this part of the bag. So we so far have done, with the right side facing you, I have the right side facing you right now, I started with 3 stitches in the first chain space, 1 stitch over top of the stitch, and I continued to work 3 stitches in the chain space, 1 stitch over top of the stitch, 3 stitches in the chain space, 1 stitch over top of the stitch, and I did that all the way down the side, all the way down the side. I marked my last one just so I can keep track of what I'm doing, and then I did 9 stitches up the side, and then I put 1 slip stitch in the first stitch of this row here. So that's what I have marked, is the 1 slip stitch that I did in the first of this row here. And then I chained 75, making sure that your chain doesn't twist. So all the way up and around, chain 75, and I come back down here to the last stitch on this top part here, and I put another slip stitch, which I have marked, and then I did another 9 down this side, and then I marked again where I started going down for my 3 stitches in one of the side of my stitch. 3 stitches in the space, 1 in the stitch, 3 stitches in the space, 1 in the stitch, and I just went all the way back down the other side till I got to the side part that where we cinched it. I put my stitch marker in the last stitch I did in the space, and then I worked my 9 stitches across the side, and then I slip stitched in the top again and put my stitch marker in that slip stitch. So now I'm going to chain another 75. So now I'm going to chain another 75, and again the handles you can kind of tailor to yourself. And I put the stitch markers just so I can keep track of, make sure I'm getting this part right here the same each time. And I kind of want to know where that slip stitch is, because that's going to be like my anchor stitch for my handles. So you can see how the brunt of your weight is actually carried along the sides of the bags. And we are going to cinch up the sides of the bags as well, but not quite as much. Not quite as much, because you see how we cinched them this tight on this side of the bag. If we cinched them this tight on all four sides of the bag, you wouldn't really be able to open it like you can open it. So you want the sides of the bag, you don't want them cinched quite as tight as you cinched up here around the edges underneath the handles like this. If you cinch like this, you're just going to get this much room to open this bag, and you want to be able to open this bag so you can stick a lot of stuff in it. But those are your 75 stitches for your handles. I am using a little bit smaller of a hook instead of using a 5mm. Oh, good morning. Thank you. Good morning, working on my bag now, just the first part. Hey, you gotta start somewhere, don't you? Okay, so now I'm gonna work my next 75 stitches up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 50 stitches so far. So like you can tailor, like I had said, you can tailor this to be as long as you want. However, your handles are going to have a little bit of a give, not a lot of give, but your bag is going to stretch, like the bottom part of the bag. After we do a couple more rounds on this handle with just slip stitches, it's going to be pretty secure and pretty tight, so it really won't stretch too much. But if your bag comes down too far, the bottom part of the bag that's meant to stretch is going to really stretch down. It is a watermelon color, and I'm bringing it to Disney at the end of the May. Oh, cool! So you want to make sure you're it's just really comfortable enough to go over your arm, and not much bigger than that, because the bottom part of your bag is really going to stretch out, even though the handles won't. And that's kind of the idea, so that you can just kind of like shove stuff in it, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, but the handles stay where they are. Because if the handles grew as well as the bag grew, just as much as the bag grew, you would end up with like walking, dragging it, caveman style. Sorry about my analogies there. I don't know, things just fly out of my mouth, I guess. All right, so I got to 50. $64.65, almost there. $75. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't twist. And I'm going to bring it down here where we secured it with a slip stitch to the top of that bag there. We're going to do the same thing in the last stitch there on that top part there. On that last stitch there, we're going to make another slip stitch, and that's what I'm going to mark. And I like to mark those slip stitches because I know where my anchor stitch is. So if I don't mark anything else, I usually will mark that, but I just want to make sure I have this straight there. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch in that top stitch there. Put my elegant stitch marker in so that I know that that's my slip stitch. And then the other tail from the other side of the bag, I'm just going to work right over top of that as well. And I am going to, again, just like I did. Now if you need to do 10 stitches, or if you want to do a couple more stitches down the side, however many you think fit, that's fine. Just mark it so you know that you're doing that same amount of stitches on each one of these sides. So if you do 9 or 10 here, you want to do the same 9 or 10 here. So like I did 9 stitches. I did 9 stitches up the side here. So I want to make sure that I do 9 stitches up each one of these sides. If you choose to do 10 stitches, if it just seems more comfortable to you with the 10 stitches, you can just do 10. You can do 10 stitches up here. You just have to make sure you do the same 10 stitches on each one of these sides. So again, same here with each one of these sides. With all 4 sides, you just want to make sure you get the same stitches. So that's my single crochet, and now I'm going to single crochet my 9 wherever I can fit my stitch. I'm going to single crochet my 9 back down to the bottom. I am going to go over this tail so I don't have to worry about it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and again, it is not an exact science. Wherever you can fit your hook to get in there, make the stitch. And then I'm going to cut my tail off because I don't have to leave it in because I just crocheted over top of it. So that's my 9 stitches down there. And this is my slip stitch that I marked, and then my 9 stitches across that panel, and that brings me back to the first stitch in the side here where I started at the beginning. Oh, good morning. It's Patty, right? I hope all is well as well. Good morning. I came in late. I had a kid issue. It happens. So far we did 3 single crochets, and I marked this, 3 single crochets in each space, and then a single crochet on top of the stitch, 3 and 1 on top of the stitch, just like we did the base row for the other one. And then when we got to the end, we worked 9 stitches up the side. We slip stitched to the first stitch up here at the top, and then we chained 75 to go around, and I slip stitched to the last single crochet on this row, and then I did another 9 stitches down the bottom, and then I went back down the side working my 3 stitches in 1, 3 in the space and 1, all the way down to the next side, and I did the same thing. I did 9 up the side, anywhere you can put them. I slip stitched into the first stitch on this row to kind of anchor. I did my 75 stitches up and around. I slip stitched to the last stitch on that row, and then I did another 9 stitches, and that brought me to the end. So now you can join them. Oh, I'm glad everything's good too. Yep, it's getting there. Okay, so I don't usually join my rounds if I don't have to. I usually just work right on top of them. So this is where we joined with a slip stitch to start our first 3 single crochets in our first block. And I'm just going to pull out that stitch marker, just like I did when working the plushies. And I'm just going to single crochet right into that first stitch. So I didn't join with a slip stitch and chain 1. I'm just going to just single crochet right into that first stitch there without slip stitching to join and chaining 1. I'm just going to go right around it, and I'm going to mark that stitch that I just did as my first stitch now. So I know that I still am going to have 9 stitches in between these 2 markers here, so I can make sure that that stays the same. So now to start cinching it, because we don't want it cinched too much, the last one I think we did, we decreased every stitch and then we pulled 3 together with every stitch. This time around we're actually just going to do 2 stitches and then a decrease. So I already did the first stitch, which was the first one there, and then I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch and then I'm going to decrease. And I'm just decreasing through 2 stitches. So I'm going to single crochet the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to make sure you don't go into that same stitch twice, because sometimes it looks like it's an open stitch because of the decreases. And then I'm going to pull up a loop from the first one, pull up a loop from the second one. I'm going to pull through those 2 loops and then pull my single crochet together. So I'm doing 2 single crochets together. And then I'm doing 2 single crochets. So I'm doing 2 stitches and I'm decreasing 1. Decreasing 1 time. 2 stitches and making a decrease. 2 stitches and making a decrease. And the decrease again is only over 2 stitches. So it's like 2 and 2. So what did I do here? So this is my decrease. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to decrease over the next 2 stitches. I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to decrease over the next 2 stitches. So that's how it starts. And I'm going to work that way all the way up to the 9 chains on the other side. I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to single crochet 2, and I'm going to decrease over 2. Do 2 single crochets together. So I'm going to single crochet even over the next 2 stitches, and then I'm going to decrease that stitch. And I'm just going to keep working down that side like that. Well, it's really coming. Yep, it's getting there. And you can see how it does start to cinch it together, but it's not quite as cinched together. Which is how we want it, so we can just kind of drop a handle off our shoulder and shove something in it. I have to keep track of the time. So single crochet in the next 2 and work 1 decrease. Single crochet over the next 2, just all the way down, and then work 1 decrease. And again, the decreases are just over 2 stitches, not 3. Sorry. One of my kids from the city wanted to know what kind of blueberry bushes I have growing. I don't know, they were here when I moved in. I'm sure there are different kinds of blueberries, but I have no clue. I think he's the only kid that doesn't know that I sit and do this, or he does, but doesn't realize that this is what time I do. He's my oldest. Talking about his blueberry bushes. I never thought I'd get to this point in my life where my kids are talking about the delicious ones. That's right, delicious ones. I never thought I'd get to this point in my life where my kids were talking about what kind of shrubs they were going to plant around their houses. But yet, here I am. It's strange, actually. The blueberry bushes were here when I moved here. There are grapevines down there in my yard that were here when I moved here. I tried one year to stake up those grapevines and grow them, and I was not very successful. So my husband just started mowing them over. I finally checked you out on YouTube. It's great. I can go back and look on things now. Oh, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I didn't have much success staking up those grapevines, so my husband just started mowing over them with the mower. And I know if I still want grapevines, I could let them grow, because even like 6 years later, I mean, I think I did that the first couple years we were here. I tried to stake them up. And like even after 6 years of mowing them, they're still coming up through the grass, which is just amazes me. I was thinking blueberry bushes or something similar. He needs to pay attention to the sun. Pay attention to the sun before you decide. He must be on break from work. That would be great now. Well, since they are in the process of trying to cut down my trees and getting them all gone by the end of the summer, hopefully, as they get more of the trees down, and I know that those grapevines are going to get a little bit more sun, I am going to try again, actually. So, we'll see. I have no idea what kind of grapes they are. It's like I have no idea what kind of blueberries they are. Although I do know there are different kinds of grapes. The gentleman down the road has grapevines, and they're staked up, and they look so pretty, and they get so heavy in the summertime. And I'm jealous. Why can't I grow grapes? But I do think it has a lot to do with all the shade in my yard because of all the trees. They need to go. And not just because of the shade. They need to go because I don't want them falling on my house one of these days. They're getting too big and too old. The one was like totally rotten inside. Oh, I love blueberries too. I don't even like pick them and bring them in the house. I just like walk to the middle of the yard and just sit there and like eat them. So everybody knows that if they want blueberries, they need to go pick their blueberries, because I will just sit there at the bushes and just eat them all. All right. So when I get to the end, because I'm working in multiples of 4, I have 2 more stitches. And then that brings me to the last stitch that I marked in that loop. So I'm just going to put that last stitch in that loop over top of the other stitch, and I'm going to mark it again. What did I start with there? I must have started with a decrease. Just making sure so I get both sides right. Oh no, I started with two and ended up with 2. Okay, well, either way. So now I'm going to work my 9 up the side. Great snacks. Oh, I know, I love them. So I'm going to work my 9 up the side, and it should be 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, this is where we start doing things just a little bit different. Not much different, just a little bit different. So, where you put your stitch marker, I'm trying my best here. So where you put your stitch marker in that first slip stitch that you did on the previous row to anchor your handles. So you worked up your 9, and then you put a slip stitch in the top of this row here in the very first stitch to anchor your handles. That's the stitch I have marked. And then the rest of the stitches are my chain stitches. So I'm actually going into the, so what you're looking at, the way you're looking at it, I am going to go into, let me find my needle here. Cannot find my needle. So this was the last stitch I did for my decreases. This is, there it goes. This is the stitch that is my slip stitch that anchored it to the top. And I'm going to work through this loop here, this top loop, all the way across my chain stitches. Trying to get them without, all the way across my top chain stitches, just in the top loop. Did I do just the top loop, or did I do there and we're going to slip stitch? Oh, no, now I'm back. Okay. So the slip stitch where it's anchored, that I just took my stitch marker out of, that's going to get pretty tight. So I'm just going to slip stitch in the back loop of that, which would be the top loop of it. So I'm going to put that first slip stitch in that anchor stitch to there. And then when I start working my chain stitches, I'm actually going to go through 2 loops to do my slip stitch. So let's see if I can turn so I can show you. I'm going to, in that anchor stitch here, I'm going to work just in that top loop and do another slip stitch. And I do it because since it's anchored down, it's going to end up getting tight. So I did my slip stitch in that anchor loop in that back loop. And now I have my chains to work on, and I'm actually going to go through the top two. I'll show you what I did with my needle. I know it's here somewhere. Oh, there it is. So now when I go into my chains and I work my chains, I'm going to insert my hook in through the top 2. So in through the top 2 stitches. So I'm going to work in through the top 2 stitches. I don't know if you guys can see that there. Into the top 2 stitches. So there's only like one strand on the bottom. So then into the top 2 stitches. So there's only one strand on the bottom. So that's how I'm going to do my slip stitches. And just to make them tighter, that's why I'm going over 2 loops instead of just into 1 loop for my slip stitches. And it is going to get, am I back? I'm just making sure. I'm just making sure I'm back. Yes, good. Okay, so I'm just going to then slip stitch all the way around. That was my first chain. I'm going to mark my anchor stitch. That was the slip stitch in my first chain, and I am going to mark my anchor stitch again, just so I know. So again, I'm going to do my slip stitch. I'm going to go in through the top 2 chains. So you see I have two chains on the top here, or not 2 chains, the top 2 parts of the stitch. And then I'm just going to pull a slip stitch through. I'll show you again. So I'm just going to go, this is hard because it won't focus, into the next chain through the top 2 loops there, and then I'm just going to pull a slip stitch through. And you want to make sure you pull your slip stitches the same size as your chain, but you don't really want them any bigger, you just want them the same size as your chain. So you're going to go in and you're going to pull your slip stitch through again, and you're just going to pull it the same size of your chain. So you see how it's starting to, you're doing a slip stitch right over your chain stitch. So you're just going to continue that all the way around your handles, doing that slip stitch into that chain stitch, and making sure, and you can just, to make sure you're getting them the same size, you can just kind of hold it up there while before you pull it through. So when you pull it through and you yarn over to do your slip stitch, if you just hold your hook like this, it will naturally fall to where the next stitch is, so it won't stretch it out too much, and it will be the same size as your chain stitch there. That's the goal, to get your slip stitches the same size as your chain stitches. If you don't, that's when things start to curl. Like you could make like, some people make doll hair out of like their slip stitches that are just like this, but what they do is they do their chain stitch and then they do their slip stitches really tight, and that's, so instead of actually doing a decrease, the tighter the slip stitch is, the more it will curl your work. So you want to make sure your slip stitches are the same size as your chain stitches. So again, if you look at them, you can see that it kind of starts to make like an I-cord. And those are my slip stitches with the darker, and those were my chain stitches from the lighter side. And it does start to make like an I-cord. And it will stay straight as long as you make sure your slip stitch is the same size as your chain underneath it. So I'm just going to go around. I know this seems like a pain, but I'm going to go around and just slip stitch. The easiest way is to drop that, hold it, and then pull it through. Put it through your stitch, drop it and hold it. I'm not even on the camera. Maybe in about 20 minutes. I'm going to drop it and hold it, and then put it through the stitch. That way it kind of, I split the yarn there. So I'm going to put it through my stitch, and I'm going to just kind of hold it there while I pull it through. And that way it's kind of easier to get your chains the same. Your slip stitch is the same size as your chain. So that's what it's going to start to look like. And I don't mind that the ombre changes colors. That's kind of the way I wanted to do that. Yeah, so we might not get to finish the handles today. We might have to finish the handles tomorrow. But I'm probably going to leave here around 11:15, I think. And I'm just working my slip stitches all the way up and around that handle. I kind of like that the ombre color made different colors. That way you can see what I've done into what I did. And it's okay if it pulls out a little bit like this, because we're actually going to go through and make another 2 more sets of slip stitches through this handle. That's why I said I don't think I'm going to get around this bag all the way. And you'll notice that it gets nice and tight because it doesn't really have much stretch in it, just because you're doing a slip stitch over top of a slip stitch, or a slip stitch over top of a chain stitch. And it's a straight slip stitch instead of where the granny square totes, how I do up around the handles, I do a zigzag slip stitch. The zigzag slip stitch works same as your zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. It would give a little bit. This I really don't want to have much give in it, so I'm just doing the straight slip stitch all the way around the chain. This time zone. It's 10:53 here. It's 8 a.m. there. Okay, so maybe in about 20 minutes I have to leave. It is 10:54 here. Can work a little bit faster, I guess. But I don't think I'm going to get around this handle a second time. Oops. So you see my handle is starting to thicken up, but yet it's not getting too thick. And it's not really all that, I mean, it has a little bit of stretch to it, but not much. Alright, so now I'm down to the last 2 stitches, and sometimes it's hard to see where the last 2 stitches are because of that slip stitch we did. But I'm going to pull that through there, and then I'm back down to the anchor stitch that I worked, and I'm going to take that out, and I'm just going to slip stitch into the top part of that, into the top loop. That's my anchor stitch. That's my last stitch that I did. This is my anchor slip stitch, and I'm just going to work into that top loop there and put another slip stitch into the top loop. So the way you're looking at it. I've done my last slip stitch in my last chain, and then I'm going to work in this top loop here to do another slip stitch over top of my anchor stitch. Good morning. You are my other Cindy, right? I think so. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so then I'm going to do my 9 down the side. 1, 2, whoops, I do want to mark that anchor stitch. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm back to where I started on the side of my mesh again, and I'm going to do again single crochet in the next 2, single crochet, decrease over these 2, a single, and decrease over those 2, a single, and a decrease. So 2 singles and 1 decrease, and you're only decreasing over 1 stitch. And you're going to do that all the way down to the next side, all the way up and around the next chain handle like you did, back down to the beginning stitch, your 9 stitches across the side, and back down to the beginning stitch where you started. Yes? Are we there? Do you guys mind if I take a break here and make sure everybody's going to get out the door? So I am, again, when I make my first stitch there, I'm going to, and you just do it to the end. So if you end up with a decrease, if you end up with your 2 single crochets, either way is fine, because you've got so much here that's going to gather up that you're not going to miss that stitch or 2. So I'm going to work all the way down. So again, I'm single crocheting into 2 stitches, and then I'm going to decrease 2 stitches, 1 decrease over 2 stitches. So single crochet in the next 2 stitches, work 1 decrease over the next 2 stitches. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and 1 decrease over the next 2 stitches. And that's going to start, you can see how already how it starts to like cinch it up. So I'm just going to pull that loop up a little bit, but you can see already how it's starting to cinch that bag up. So we are, it's a repeat of row 1. No, row 1 we did 3 single crochets and then 1 single crochet over this one. The second row we're doing 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then we're decreasing. So 1 single, 1 single, 1 decrease. 1 single, 1 single, 1 decrease. So 1 single, 1 single, 1 decrease to make this pull in a little bit tighter. Does that work? So I'm just going to finish up the side so you can see how this side that I finished is more gathered than this side that I haven't yet. And if you guys wanted to jump ahead there, the next round that I do, I'm going to do almost the same thing, except I'm still going to do my slip stitches around the side, and 2 and 3. Are 2 and 3 the same? No, the next set of decreases I'm going to do 1 single crochet and then 1 decrease. So I'm going to cinch it even further. So this round I did 2 single crochets, 1 decrease. The next one I'm going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease. Is going to be the next round. And when you work into your, you work your next round of slip stitches into this I-cord here, it pretty much doesn't matter where you put it as long as you put it through 2 loops. So you can see that that's the front part of where we just did our slip stitches, and that's the back part of where we did our slip stitches, and that's the side where the 2 come together. I will actually go into that side. So I'm kind of going through those are the 2 loops that I'm going through when I do my slip stitches up and around. It just makes it a little bit easier and pulls it a little bit tighter, because then it pulls those 2 rows of slip stitches together again. Does that make sense? So that's about how I would do the next round. I would do the next round 1 single crochet, 1 decrease all the way across, and then I would do again my slip stitches. My slip stitches kind of into the side there, where this is the slip stitch row that I did, and that's the chain row that I did. I would do it kind of like in the side there to kind of pull them together so that they would stay together. Okay, if that makes sense, on that note, I am going to run, and I am going to finish just what we did today on the other side, and then tomorrow I'll come back and I will have time to finish the last 2 rounds of those handles. So this round that we're doing is 2 singles, 1 decrease, and slip stitching all the way up the handles. And that's where I'm going to leave it go. I know I told you a little bit more, but that little bit more is where I'm going to start tomorrow. So far we did our 2 single crochets and our 1 decrease and worked up our 1 handle. We're going to do our 2 single crochets and 1 decrease and work down the other side. And then I'm going to slip stitch up and around this side here over my 9 stitches, and I'm going to stop so that tomorrow when I come back I can finish working on it with you. All right. I hope that all made sense. Sometimes I feel scattered and I'm not, and sometimes I don't feel scattered and I make no sense at all. So I just want to make sure that you got that. But you can see now how this one is the row that we haven't started to decrease yet. And this is the side that we have started to decrease. So you can see how that one hangs, and this one's starting to cinch up like the side of a bag. You can see the difference in that. So over the next 2 rows, we'll continue to cinch it so that it's, oh, moon silk. I'm just about to jump off. But I'll tell you what, because I was looking up the time differences, and when I come on later in the afternoon, it's really, really late. Will you be here in about an hour? Because I was just about to jump off. It does. It does make sense. Thank you very much, Cindy. Yeah, sure. Okay, so give me about an hour and I'll be back, and I'll work on those granny squares with you. I'll show you some tricks to pull them together. Again, thank you everybody for joining me. I hope it made sense. If it didn't, don't hesitate to send me a message. You can either use TikTok or you can message me through one of my contact forms on either my shop page or my website page. You can find today's tutorial there, and my YouTube what I did just now probably will not be uploaded until about 3 o'clock because it takes a little bit of time for me to get them, for TikTok to process them and get me uploaded. Oh, you're welcome. I don't mind. It's a granny square. We can do that. And I will talk to you guys all tomorrow. Moon Silk, I'll see you in about an hour. Thank you.